Hello everyone! For today's video, I'm gonna do a demo lecture about the assigned methods of grammar which I choose. However, let us get a hold of ourselves together as we are about to begin our session with a prayer.
Our loving God, we praise and thank you for the blessings you have given to us. Thank you for giving us a chance to continue learning amidst the pandemic that has caused a lot of changes in our lives. Bless us with the wisdom to understand our lesson and the joy to learn with our classmates. Bless also our teachers as they impart to us the value of learning. Help us to become children you want us to be. This we pray of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Before we begin, please make yourselves comfortable as we are about to begin our discussion. Find a solemn place so you can focus in the discussion. And please prepare pens and papers for you to take down notes for the important information. Okay, so in this lesson, we will discuss the inductive method to be utilized and how to effectively teach grammar in the class. This approach is really helpful to help you get through the difficulties in teaching grammar in the learning environment. First, let us know what grammar is. Grammar is a system of a language. It provides a proper order or sequence to sentence for better representation. As we all know, grammar is really crucial to learning English because it is considered the system of a language, wherein it is the very first step needed in constructing sentences or communicating using English. In addition, grammar works as a kind of sentence-making machine, which means that without considering and understanding the concepts of grammar, it is also impossible to learn sentence structure or create even simple sentences. So you see, grammar provides us with a sequence or an order of words. That is why learning everything about the rules of grammar is needed for us to be understood and not misinterpreted. According to I.A. Gordon, if language is a vehicle of our thoughts and feelings, then grammar is the machine by which that vehicle is moving. I agree with the quote. Each of us communicates for personal purposes, and in order to do that, we need language. But a language is nothing without its grammar. Grammar is really significant, just as how significant a language is. Why? Because language users use grammar to create finer meanings. It is true that we need language to share our opinions and thoughts with other people. But people cannot understand us if the order of words is disorganized, which makes people hard to understand the meaning of the sentence. We cannot drive our ideas to other people without grammar, which we consider a machine that will cause our ideas to be understood. Now we know the definition of grammar. So, why do we need to teach grammar? What are its aims of teaching English grammar inside the classroom? That is to, first, develop students' understanding of the structure of the English language. Teaching grammar is really important to the students because they need to understand the very essence of why a second language learner needs to have enough knowledge of grammar. We use English as a medium of instruction, and so the students need to understand the sentence structure of English, so that when they construct their own sentences, they will not confuse the listener or the reader. Second, to enable learners to express their ideas logically, and correctly in speech. Teaching grammar to students will help them make organized sentences and will help them make finer meanings with it. When grammar is taught to learners, they will be able to use it themselves. With this kind of ability, they will be able to express meaning clearly and explicitly. Third, to teach grammar as a rule-governed behavior rather than as a vote-based exercise. Non-native speakers may have difficulty picking up grammatical patterns during speech, and that could lead to a misunderstanding or wrong being relayed. That is why teaching grammar as a rule-governed behavior will help students understand better the sequence of words when forming sentences. This will be beneficial more specifically to unmotivated students, wherein it offers structured system that can be taught and can be tested in methodical steps. It will help students to be guided in their comprehension and production of real sentences, which they can use in a wide context. I presented to you the definition of grammar and its significance for learning the structures and rules. However, in the classroom, students often neglect grammar lessons as they feel bored and uninterested in listening to any parts of speech. This is also evident when I watch a short video online that was a dormant video wherein a student finds a way not to take the test in English as he feels bored and hates grammar. Given this situation, teachers must really find a way to pique the student's attention and interest whenever learning grammar. On the contrary, traditional methods often fail when it comes to this kind of situation. When we entered the world full of technological inventions, students' perceptions toward learning also changed. But behind all of these many reasons, teachers' job is to make students learn everything they need to understand. So, as you can see, grammar is really important to our everyday lives because without knowing the grammar of the language, we cannot also make sentences clear and explicitly. Thankfully, our curriculum found another way of making learning fun and meaningful. They developed different methods of teaching grammar effectively, and one of them is the inductive method, which we will discuss in this video recording. The inductive teaching method of teaching grammar is an inductive learning, or is also known as discovering learning. It is actually a process where the learner discovers rules by observing examples. Inductive teaching is based on the bottom-up theory, wherein the teacher gives specific examples to explaining general rules in the classroom. An inductive teaching is based on the bottom-up theory, which accepts the view that language learners tend to focus on parts rather than the whole. For this reason, teaching process begins with a text, audio, or visual in a context. Secondly, learners work on the material to find the rules themselves. And in the final stage, they give their own examples. The inductive method of teaching grammar is applicable in the learning environment because it makes the lesson fun and meaningful at the same time. The simplest way to understand this method is that it is a discovery learning method in which teachers do not directly introduce grammatical rules, but rather allow students to discover or notice the grammar based on their prior learning experience. This method is a learner-centered approach because the learners are engaged in their own learning. That is why inductive teaching method is according to the bottom-up theory, because the learners will be more involved in the learning experience and tend to participate more actively. In addition, the inductive teaching method is unique because it does not rely on a strict lesson plan or prior knowledge or guidelines. Just like in the above diagram, it says, from giving specific example to general rules, which means that the teacher will give examples related to the topic to be discussed and then allow the students find out what it is. Afterwards, the teacher will give further explanation of the topic. For example, a teacher writes present and past sentences. However, the teacher will not say that the sentences are in present and past forms, but rather he or she will allow the learners to identify the sentences and tell the differences. This way, the teacher not only makes the learning fun, he or she also discusses the grammar rules. These are the definitions of inductive method based on other accounts. The inductive method is defined by Nonan 1999 as a process in which learners discover grammatical rules for themselves by evaluating examples. It is also feasible to employ a context for grammatical rules in an inductive method. That is, rather than isolated phrases, learners examine the grammatical rules in a text or an audio file. In an inductive approach, learners are given samples that include the target grammar they will learn, according to Thornby 1999. The students then work on the examples and try to figure out the rules for themselves. When students have a good understanding of the grammar principles, they can practice the language by making up their own examples. There are 5 major steps of inductive method, and this step is also what they call as Herbartian method of teaching. The step system of lesson planning was started by Johann Friedrich Herbert, a German psychologist. This is also known as Herbartian 5 steps, which these steps are used for the students for receiving new knowledge in educational fields. His 5-stage system of lesson planning involves 5 discrete steps including preparation, presentation, association, generalization, and application. According to Johann Friedrich Herbert, that when a topic is properly presented to the students, they associate the topic with their existing ideas and learn in a coherent way. Johann Friedrich Herbert believed that using these 5 steps, the students will be able to acquire, assimilate, and apply knowledge efficiently. What do we do in the preparation stage? This is a process of relating new material to be learned to relevant past ideas or memories in order to give the pupil a vital interest in the topic under consideration. This step is involved with preparing the students to receive new information. Nothing new is taught to the students during preparation. In relation to the issue at hand, the instructor should verify what the students already know by asking a few questions based on their prior knowledge. In general, the teacher can use this stage to assess the pupil's entrance conduct before beginning the class. This stage can be used to test past information, generate interest in students' minds, and keep their curiosity alive. These steps actually include the activities such as assumptions regarding the student's prior knowledge in relation to the lesson, the verification of prior knowledge, making use of prior knowledge to introduce the lesson, and lastly, encouraging your students to study the current lesson. So in the presentation stage, it is the step where the teacher is presenting new material by means of concrete objects or actual experience. It is the most important phase and the only method for the actual teaching process to take place. The lesson's goals should be clearly defined here, and the header should be posted on the blackboard. We must create an environment in which both the teacher and the students can participate in the teaching and learning process. The presentation's ultimate goal is to make the concepts understandable to the pupils. As a result, plain language is employed. The grasp of the concepts will be improved by using appropriate and particular examples and illustrations. At this level, students' interest in the subject matters should be maintained by asking questions from time to time. The teacher should arrange his content with attention and competence so that his students can understand it clearly and quickly. For demonstration and explanation, the teacher should use questions, charts, graphs, photographs, models, and other illustrative materials. A few questions specific to that area should be asked at the end of each session to see whether the students are ready to learn new things. In the third stage of inductive method is association. This stage is actually the process in which thorough assimilation of the new idea through comparison with former ideas and consideration of their similarities and differences in order to implant the new idea in mind. At this point, more emphasis should be placed on constructing the facts observed by the students with another notion through the use of examples. The students can derive definitions or theories by using this comparison. To encourage students to think creatively, they are asked to provide unique and appropriate instances for the topic instead of the examples provided in the book. And in the generalization stage or step, it is a procedure where actually it is important to the instruction of adolescents and designed to develop the mind beyond the level of perception and the concrete. Well, actually, it is on the basis of the various comparisons, contrasts, and associated observations made in the learning environment or in the learning material supplied by the teacher. The students must arrive at some general notions or make the necessary conclusions in this step. The task of formulation should be left to students as much as possible. The teacher should aim to stay in the background at this point, providing just the required instruction and corrections. And in the last step of this 5 level of inductive teaching is the application. It actually refers to use of acquired knowledge, not in a purely utilitarian way, but so that every learned idea becomes a part of a functional mind and an aid to a clear, vital interpretation of life. The teacher now asks the students to apply what they've learned in a class to a new situation. The study of science will be pointless unless scientific knowledge is utilized in new situations or in our daily lives. This use of scientific ideas will improve learning and make it more durable. If we have Herbarian method of teaching, we also have types of inductive method. So first, it is the inquiry-based learning. In inquiry-based learning, or is also known as inquiry-guided learning or guided inquiry, students are presented with a challenge, such as a question to be answered, an observation or data set to be interpreted, or a hypothesis to be tested, and accomplish the desired learning in the process of responding to that challenge. Inquiry-based learning is a learning process that engages students by making real-world connections through exploration and high-level questioning. It is an approach to learning that encourages students to engage in problem-solving and experiential learning. It is more than asking a student what he or she wants to know. It is about triggering curiosity, and activating a student's curiosity is a far more important and complex goal than a mere information delivery. It is an approach to learning that emphasizes the student's role in the learning process. Rather than the teacher telling students what they need to know, students are encouraged to explore the material, ask questions, and share ideas. Furthermore, inquiry-based learning uses different approaches to learning, including small group discussion and guided learning. Instead of memorizing facts and material, students learn by doing. This allows them to build knowledge through exploration, experience, and discussion. This is beneficial to second language learners or students who are still learning the English language, for them to have a good chance to practice the language and being able to master it. As a result, the students can be able to use the language fluently and convey messages clearly and explicitly. And of course, this learning is guided through a teacher who teach them the grammatical structures and patterns needed to use to form new sentences. And of course, we have another type of inductive method, and that is discovery learning. In discovery learning, students are confronted with a challenge and left to work out the solution on their own. The discovery learning method is hands-on, focuses on the process, and encourages students to look for solutions. Instead of just teaching students to memorize rules and concepts, this method lets them apply ideas to their lives, creating memorable lessons that will help them turn them into lifelong learners. Furthermore, the instructor may provide feedback in response to student efforts but offers little or no direction before or during those efforts. The lack of structure and guidance provided by the instructor and the trial and error consequently required of students are the defining features of discovery learning relative to other inductive methods. In the inductive method, students are allowed to discover they wanted to learn, but the teacher must be there to guide and provide feedback to students' work. This phase is useful for second language learners to be able to explore more aside from the ones being discussed in the classroom. This way, the student will be able to learn and grasp information regarding the grammatical patterns or rules needed for creating finer meanings. Next, we have another type of inductive method is problem-based learning. In problem-based learning, or PBL, students usually working in teams are confronted with an ill-structured, open-ended real-world problem to solve and take the lead in defining the problem precisely, figuring out what they know and what they need to determine and how to proceed to determine it. This is actually a student-centered approach in which students learn about a subject by working in groups to solve an open-ended problem. This problem is what drives their motivation in the learning. They formulate and evaluate alternative solutions, select the best one, and make a case for it, and evaluate lessons learned. When they identify the need for instruction on new material, the instructor either provides it or guides the students to obtain the required information themselves. Moreover, it can promote the development of critical thinking skills, problem-solving abilities, and communication skills. It can also provide opportunities for working in groups, finding and evaluating research materials to become a lifelong learner. This is really suitable for the students to help each other in addressing their problems and come up with a better solution. If they have problem with regards to the grammar rules, then they can discuss it themselves and maybe making research together to find out the solutions they can do to make themselves fluent in English. And we also have here another type of inductive method. It is the project-based learning and hybrid methods. This method actually involves assignments that call for students to produce something, such as a process or product design, a computer code or simulation, or the design of an experiment, and then the analysis and interpretation of the data. This approach is a dynamic classroom approach in which students actively explore real-world problems and challenges and maybe acquire a deeper knowledge from it. Strictly speaking, in project-based learning, students mainly apply previously acquired knowledge and the final product is the central focus of the assignment. While in problem-based learning, students have not previously received formal instruction in the necessary background material and the solution process is more important than the final product. In practice, the distinction between the two methods is not necessarily that clean, and instructional programs have recently adopted approaches that are hybrids of both methods. Furthermore, this is valuable for English language learners because it teaches academic vocabulary, encourages collaboration, scaffolds structure and function, allows assessment and differentiation, and leverages their native language. This way, they can become the person who wish they are by speaking fluently in English, just like the native speakers. Another type of inductive method is case-based teaching. In case-based teaching, students study historical or hypothetical cases involving scenarios likely to be encountered in professional practice. This type of inductive method develops student skills in analytical thinking and reflective judgment by reading and discussing complex, real-life scenarios. Students are challenged to explore their existing preconceptions and modify them to accommodate the realities of the cases. The key to case-based instruction is having cases that are clear and realistic and encompasses all of the teaching points the instructor wishes to convey. And lastly, we have just-in-time teaching method. It is a method where students respond electronically to conceptual questions before each class, and the instructor adjusts the lesson to react to misconceptions revealed by students' responses. This method is somewhat demanding to implement for several reasons. It requires preparation of conceptual questions prior to every lecture, and a web-based course management system that can tabulate students' responses for the instructor to review. It also requires flexibility on the part of instructors, who must adjust their lesson plans for each lecture in reaction to students' responses, and could end up following significantly different schedules for different classes. Okay, so what are the strategies for the inductive teacher to be utilized in the classroom? The inductive teacher must be modern, flexible, and an inquirer who's also attentive to the overall process of learning that's taking place before them in the classroom. In this way, a number of strategies can be implemented to ensure that the learning process is running smoothly and that the students are engaged and on the right track. Okay, first, as an inductive teacher must do a review your goals as a teacher. Being up to date with the latest trends, methods, and resources is not only a great habit to maintain but is now an overriding expectation in the modern classroom. That is why making use of this method can help the students to feel fun and enjoy while learning. They will not feel pressured as they will be enjoying learning for the rest of the day. And that is one of the goals of being a teacher, because he or she is a responsible person on how to captivate students' attention and their love for learning. Second, you have to build a constructionist classroom. You have to remove the fear of inquiry and aim to create an environment in which students are actively encouraged to ask questions, dig deep, and push each other to explore complex topics. In addition, teachers must see to it that the student will feel safe and care because if they fear something in the classroom, that will affect their learning. That is why creating a friendly environment is necessary so that the students will get along and learn together. Third, you have to motivate the students to question or to raise questions. Encouraging students to ask questions can be a tough ask. That's why it is important to focus on the constructionist goal, as mentioned above, and to remind students that there is no such thing as a stupid question. And as a teacher, he or she will motivate the students for them to have encouragement to ask questions they have. Because that way, teachers will know if there are things that confuse them or there are things that still need clarification, especially when learning grammatical structures. Next, we have to inspire confidence and trust. By providing consistent encouragement, positive vibes, and collaborating with students, they'll in turn be more willing to actively voice questions and explore. A teacher is also a role model in the classroom. That is why one of the role of the teacher is to inspire the students to become like her or him someday. Students will feel motivated if they are confident enough to pursue everything they want to do. In addition, they are imaginative, so it will not be hard to support them in learning. And last, we have to group students together. Inductive teaching is one of those approaches that works really well when students are paired. By doing so, students are able to discuss and gain confidence, as the exploration doesn't seem as daunting. By bouncing questions off each other, the process occurs in a team, thereby eliminating some of the fear we previously discussed. Furthermore, having them in group will help to make them comfortable with each other. This way, they will be able to discuss concepts and share their opinions with one another. How does the inductive method help a teacher? First, the inductive method of teaching allows a teacher to use open-ended questions and activities to guide students towards their understanding. The teacher actually presents the rule through situations and sentences. He or she will allow students to notice the difference and similarities of the concepts presented. Through this, the students will be guided in doing the activity, and then the learners do free practice. After that, the teacher deduces or elicits the rule form from the learners themselves by themselves. So second, we have the teacher will create an environment where students can take risks to learn. The learning environment is really important because that is the place where students learn everything. The most important thing is to have students enough room for learning because they are still on the stage where they are imaginative, curious, inventive, and wanted to do everything they like. And as long as it is connected with a lesson, then the teacher will guide his or her students to learn everything they wanted to learn. Next, we have the role of the teacher is to create a productive learning environment. This is done by developing a curriculum in accordance with macro teaching lesson plan, selecting appropriate materials, and introducing new material in a sequential order. Creating a curriculum where the students can be productive and learning meaningfully at the same time is what teachers needed to make students learn. As we all know, when it comes to learning grammar more specifically, the students neglect it and find way to escape the lesson. That is why the students must adhere with the learning by having them motivated to do it. When they feel enjoyed, they will not notice that they are already learning. Next thing that we should do is that the teacher should provide opportunities to children to explore concepts, ask questions, and take risks. The learning environment must be suitable for the children to explore, and it must be wide for them to discover and learn. Having an opportunity like this, they will have enough knowledge more than that of the teacher discussed in the lessons. Another we have, there should be no attempt by the teacher to control or direct the process, as it could hinder the whole strategy. Yes, of course. The teacher should be a guidance, not a hindrance to students' success. The teacher will not control the situations as long as it is good for them to learn what they are discovering. We have now the internet where they can be able to research everything they want to know. But without guidance, the student will not know what is appropriate or not. That is why the teacher will guide them for them to learn the necessary concepts needed for their development. And in the inductive method, or applying inductive method in the classroom, what are the role of the teacher? So first, the teacher should present the new grammar item to the learners. Second, to prepare exercises for the students. Third, teacher is the organizer and controller of the classroom. And lastly, inductive teaching, teacher behaves as a guide and helper while students study the grammar rules themselves. In the inductive learning environment, the teacher will give several examples that is connected with the lesson and then allow the learners to notice it and identify similarities and differences. After that, the teacher will present the grammar rules in the class. In this method, the students are highly part of the learning process where they can participate and become active learners. Why does inductive teaching work in the learning environment? Okay, inductive teaching forms part of a wider strategy of self-discovery and self-educating, which has seen surge in popularity in recent times. Through integrating self-discovery in the classroom, the students will enjoy and have fun because finally they will not just sit around and waiting for their turn to speak their ideas, but in this method, they are actually allowed to speak enough. Next, we have learning takes place in the hands of the students, and in this way, it can be highly effective tool to encourage student participation and engagement. Students' engagement is really important in assessing their capabilities. Without having them engage, teachers can hardly identify what are the areas that needs improvement. Through students' participation and engagement inside the classroom, they cannot feel bored, but they will learn everything at the same time. Last, we have studies have shown that inductive teaching is generally more effective. In addition to this, inductive reasoning is an underlying force in the inductive development of children. This method is really effective because students can be able to develop their cognitive skills. Not just that, we are also having them arouse their curiosity at the same time, which will help them to push themselves to learn more. Of course, we have here we already have discussed why this inductive method is really effective in the learning environment. Now, we have advantages and disadvantages of this method. So first, let us have what are the advantages of using this method in the classroom. First, it encourages students' participation. Second, builds natural curiosity in students. Third, helps in developing a scientific mindset approach. And lastly, promotes learning by a doing approach. However, we have these disadvantages despite of the advantages that we have in this method. These are the following. Having this method in the learning environment is quite time consuming. Second, it might lead to students to develop incorrect rules. Third, grammar is not taught directly. And lastly, especially that there are some rules may not be induced easily. However, despite of the flaws that this method have, when the teacher use this type of learning in the classroom, the teacher must always see to it that the student really learn the grammar rules, and the students will be able to reshape their previous knowledge so that errors will not become a habit. So the major aim of grammar teaching inside the classroom is to make students aware of how language is constructed and how to produce accurate sentences, both verbally and written. To summarize, because it is focused on discovery, an inductive method would help learners gain a deeper understanding of grammar. As according to Hall, 2011, deducing rules from examples allows students to become more autonomous learners who are in charge of their own learning while using the target language. Through the process of discovery, this approach also has a favorable impact on students' analytical and cognitive abilities. Additionally, through activities in which students actively participate, it is possible to improve learners' grammatical and communicative abilities. To illustrate this, Hinkle and Photos 2002 indicate that because grammar is an intrinsic element of language, learners may find it more rational to discuss grammar structures rather than wider issues during the learning process. So for example, if the learner's level is intermediate or higher, they might talk about the target language grammar rules. This not only aids in the learning of grammar, but also aids in the development of their speaking abilities. Additionally, at the end of the class, the teacher could organize communicative tasks such as problem solving, role playing, or information gap activities for students to practice the rules. As a result, while teaching grammar inductively, it is possible to build a communicative class. Thank you so much for listening to my video presentation about inductive method. And of course, in this video, we discussed the following, the 5 steps or the Herbarian methods of teaching when using inductive method. And of course, the different strategies for an inductive teacher to be utilized inside the classroom, and how does this method can help a teacher when teaching grammatical rules, the role of a teacher in using inductive method, why does inductive teaching is an effective tool for teaching grammar inside the classroom, together with its advantages and disadvantages of this method. So thank you so much for listening and have a great day ahead. Thank you.